We recently finished a road trip in our Tesla Model Y, and it was our first big road trip. So I thought I would document what it took to plan the trip and what it was like to go on a trip like this. I like to use the tool called A Better Route Planner that you see on the screen. It has more options than the built-in Tesla one. I think about this as hopping from island to island. There are not enough chargers today to replicate the experience that you get with gas. With gas, you are hopping from island to island as well, but you don't think about it because there's gas everywhere. If you really want to optimize your trip, you need to be charging from about 15% to 50%. That's where the car charges the fastest. So I planned for 15 to 20% was my goal to roll into every stop. And we needed to make a stop for our family every 90 minutes to 2 hours. We can't go much further than that without bathroom breaks. And then I also had to think about where we're going to eat lunch and what's available. So our first stop was in Yakima, Washington. We left at 4:30 a.m. and we arrived a little over 2 hours later. This was a pretty long stretch, but the family was sleeping for most of it, so it went quickly. I planned to arrive with 30% charge. We actually arrived with 28, so that was pretty good. We charged for 21 minutes. Then we moved on to Pendleton, Oregon. Planned to arrive with 15% charge. We actually arrived with 23. That's because I charged a little extra while we were walking around and using the bathroom. That was only a 14-minute charge. Then we went to Baker City, Oregon. And here I planned to arrive with 15, we arrived with 19, so we were doing pretty good, using a little bit less than the estimate on all of the legs so far. We charged for 19 minutes, but we ended up staying here for quite a while because we ate lunch here as well, and we sat in the restaurant just to take a break from being in the car. Then we moved on to Boise, Idaho. We went from 67% down to 16%, which was almost exactly what we had planned. And there we had a longer charge. We charged for 27 minutes because that stint out to Twin Falls was pretty long and it was getting very hot, so we were using more battery and I just didn't want to run out in the middle of nowhere. So we charged extra, we charged up to 76. You get slower, remember, as you charge faster. And then we ran down to 16% and we arrived at our destination. We all had dinner together, went back to the hotel, and then my family went swimming while I went off to charge the car. I charged all the way up to 90%. That took 43 minutes. That was a long time to sit in the car. Thankfully, the Twin Falls charger is extremely beautiful. So in addition to sleeping and napping, I was able to walk around and look at the bridge and the big canyon there. The next morning, we left with that 90% charge, and we made it to Tremonton, Utah. We left with 90% and we arrived with only 19%, so that was 5% more than we planned. It's a pretty long stretch, but again, that was a little bit more than I had expected. We charged there for 16 minutes. Then we moved on to Draper, Utah. We had charged extra in Tremonton, partly because I was surprised we used a little more than I expected, so we charged up to 59% instead of the recommended 53%, and we arrived with 24%. So there we were doing better than the estimate, so that was fine. We charged for 15 minutes there. We went from Draper then to Price, which was about 100 miles. I had charged up to 66% at Draper, and we only went down to 25%. Charged for 19 minutes in Price, and then from Price, we made it all the way to Moab. So we left Price with 62% and planned to arrive with 15% and arrived with 11%. And our Airbnb had a charger in the garage in addition to a supercharger in town if we needed it, but we didn't. So all in all, we spent $119.46 in charging costs to drive almost 1,100 miles. That comes out to about 11 cents a mile. Our other option was an F-150. I'm guessing that would have been about 25 cents a mile in gas, so we saved over $150 in fuel costs. So would we take the Tesla again on a road trip? Absolutely. Here were some of our favorite things. The first is autopilot. I drove roughly 2,500 miles over the course of this trip, and I would say that for 2/3 to 3/4 of it, I wasn't steering. The second was cabin overheat protection. The Tesla has a feature that allows you to say, don't let the interior of the car get over 100 degrees, for example. This was great when we were hiking and it was so hot we could keep our food and water in the car a little bit cooler and not come back to a super hot car. And the third was entertainment. It was really nice to have Spotify built in with a internet connection in the car so that we didn't have to be pairing our phones to the car or anything like that. We could just touch the screen, switch music. When we were at stops, we could watch YouTube or Hulu, Disney, whatever we wanted. That was pretty convenient. It wasn't all perfect though. One of the biggest things I want to see in the future are traditional rest stops. Today, a lot of the superchargers are just in leased space in a parking lot. So you have to kind of look around to see where you're going to go use the restroom or where you can get food. And it might not be right next to the charger. It will be more convenient in the future when the charging stop also has a bathroom and a place to eat, and it's all contained in one area. And then, of course, we did make longer stops in general. If we were getting food, the food always took longer than charging, but in cases where we were only using the restroom, we usually ended up walking around for an extra 5, maybe 10 minutes. And then we had the very long charge between day 1 and day 2 because our hotel didn't have a charger. I was prioritizing good pools and good breakfast over having a charger at the hotel. In the future, I would imagine most hotels will have chargers as well. I'm not saying an EV is the right choice for everyone in every situation, but for our family, it was great. We are itching to take another road trip, and we are all excited to take the Tesla again.